So, it's 2024 and ray tracing has been a thing for 5 years now. And while the days of free FPS when turning this feature on are behind us, well, maybe unless you're still on AMD.
So we don't have the capacity.
That was a joke. In all seriousness, it is possible to have a decent ray tracing experience with any card that supports it, with the introductions of features like upscaling and frame generation, but there is still a performance difference when it's enabled, and so I wanted to ask, can you actually tell the difference between RTX on and RTX off? Well, let's have a look and play a little game.
You want to play a little game?
Oh!
Hello there, I'm June, one of the co-hosts of the show. I've heard a lot of buzz about you among the sponsors. They really think you can steal the show. Use the practice range to hone your skills so you can go into the arena and prove them right. Hello there!
I'm avoiding our common room today. Roland's testing on Accio, and students are summoning objects right.
So now that we finished that little game, let me know how you did. Did you get them all right, or did you get them all wrong, or a bit of a mix? So I thought we would take a smaller, more detailed look at a couple of the games and just go through a few extra points. So here we have Elden Ring, and as you can see the screen is split in RTX on over here and RTX off over here. Now just looking at it like this, you're probably thinking, I can't really tell a difference, and I would tend to agree with you on that. So if we slide it all the way across to RTX on, it's not the exact same image, so things will move around a little bit. But then if we go to RTX off, again you can see that not that much is actually changing. And that's because some games, they don't get the full RTX treatment. So a game can have ray tracing on, but it can only be a certain point of ray tracing, or a certain aspect of ray tracing. So in this case, in Elden Ring only has ray trace shadows. And the most obvious example in these two comparisons is just at the feet of our main character. So if we zoom in down here, with ray tracing off, you can see that the shadow is pretty generic and just follows around our main character. But then if we turn on the ray tracing here, you can see that there is a lot more detail in the shadow. It's not as dark because there really isn't that much lighting to begin with, and you can even see the hilt of the sword from his sword. So yeah, this is all that Elden Ring is really going to get you when you turn ray tracing on. And so you have to ask yourself, really, is it worth the performance loss for doing so? Now moving on to Call of Duty Warzone 3, and this is another interesting one in the fact that it does have path ray tracing and global illumination, I think, but it's only in the menus or the firing range. So as you can see here, I think this is a lot more obvious than it was on Elden Ring. We are looking down the scope here, so it does make it even more obvious. But if we go to the RTX off, you can see that we can see the back wall and the lighting. There's a fair few bits of lighting coming in here. And then if we go on to RTX on, you can see that it's a fairly dramatic change. We can't see the back wall anymore, and the only source of lighting is the light that's coming directly from above the mannequin over there. Now, one thing that is interesting of why it might not actually be in the actual game itself, like the actual Warzone itself, the Battle Royale, is quite possibly you can see the difference in how easy it is to actually see the target. Actually playing this live, it was really hard to actually aim on the head of the mannequin, just because obviously the point, the scope is black as well, so I couldn't really see it. So you can see how in a competitive game this would kind of be a disadvantage if you did have a ray tracing implementation like this. Moving on to Cyberpunk 2077 in the outdoor benchmark scene. This is probably going to be the biggest difference you'll see in a game at the moment, personally. Apart from games like Minecraft RTX or Portal RTX. And you can see here that if we go on to RTX off, it still looks bloody good. It looks really, really good. And then sliding slowly over to RTX on, we can see that personally I do prefer this. You might not. We can see that we have a lot more reflection going on in the actual puddle over here. You can see that it's actually reflecting the sign that is all the way up here. And if we go on the non-ray trace version, you can see that that is pretty much gone. It's just a general reflection from that sign up top. But one thing I have to say is that it does seem a lot clearer and more colourful with RTX off. So that is something you should also keep in mind. I think the clarity and the colours diminish a little bit when we go onto RTX on, just because of all the extra sort of steam that you get on screen. If we go up close, we can see a fairly big difference, especially on this drain over here. Like that is a fair difference. So we can really clearly see what's behind it, the rubbish behind that drain cover. But when we go on RTX on, it's pretty much covered by the steam. So the light isn't getting through as easily there. So again, personally, I prefer the RTX on for Cyberpunk. I think it makes it look a lot more gritty and realistic, but I can also understand if you'd prefer the RTX off. And lastly, in The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, a game that got a next-gen update, didn't really run too well when it first came out, but runs a lot better now. Personally, I don't really think it needed it, and to be honest, I don't really see you needing to turn RTX on when playing it. Just because if you have a look, we'll go RTX off, and then RTX on. And while I do think there is a little bit of an improvement in the image with RTX on, it really isn't that crazy, especially on this older game that wasn't designed with RTX in mind. I think one of the biggest differences you'll see is the water. So if we look at that reflection right in the middle, I think that is a lot more true of a reflection than the original. But again, if we zoom in, it is something that's nice, but not something that you would necessarily really notice on a normal gameplay. Again, also with shadows, for example, if you look at the woman's shadow in the left-hand corner here, you can see that it's a lot more realistic rather than that just dark, blocky box edge, I guess. So let me know what you thought of the RTX on versus RTX off comparisons. Was there more or less of a difference than you thought there would be? How many did you get right, and do you game with RTX on or off? And if you are new to the channel and you did like it, maybe do leave a like and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. But that's going to be all from me. Bye.